What's going on, guys? Welcome to my Descendant build series for the First Descendant. Today we're going over my updated 2.0 builds for Hailey.
Target confirmed. Ready to fire.
So Hailey was the very first build video I ever did, so this is a nice little full circle. There have been a lot of changes, plus I've learned a lot of new things since her last video, so it is definitely time for an update. I'm not going to go into too much detail over her abilities like I did before. You can check out her other video if you're interested in a more in-depth breakdown. I will link it in the description below for those of you who wish to watch it. Hailey is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to bossing, and she's also a really good mobber. Far too many people don't realize just how effective she is in combat, or just how much fun she is to play. She is a chill Descendant that specializes in advanced weaponry and running and gunning. She is a crit-based Descendant, and she deals more damage the further away she is. Weak point damage specifically, which is why she's so deadly with a sniper rifle. Her third ability, Cold Fury, places ice onto her body that increases her skill critical hit rate, like by a lot. As you can see here, her base crit rate is only 10%, but watch what happens when you pop Cold Fury. It jumps up to 97%. This is an absolute must-use ability, though there is a downside. It drains MP the entire time it's active, and it drastically reduces your run speed. There are two fixes for this, however. The first, you can use the Frost Watcher Scout Rifle. Its unique ability automatically ignores the movement reduction for 3 seconds whenever you kill an enemy. Or you can use my preferred method, the Albion Cavalry Gun. Not only does it deal more damage, it also has a ricochet effect that hits 3 additional targets every time you get a critical hit. However, the biggest selling point of this gun with Hailey is that it gives you a movement speed buff plus 50 every 0.1 seconds of continuous fire, up to a total of 10 stacks. So not only does it completely negate the movement speed decrease of Cold Fury, it automatically makes you run faster than you would be running with Cold Fury turned off. The way that I prefer to play Hailey is literally to run and gun. Her first ability shoots ice shards that inflict frostbite onto enemies, and her transmod cryogenic cluster shot makes those shards explode whenever you hit said enemy with your firearm. It then spreads to all nearby enemies in a chain reaction. So the goal is to keep shooting your gun and hit your one as often as possible. Spread, explode, spread, explode. And of course, keep your 3 up at all times for extra crit damage. This is a very MP heavy way to play, but it does an absolutely insane amount of damage, so just make sure you grab every blue you come across and let MP Collector do the rest. That brings me to the builds and her RK tuning. I have 4 builds for you: a skill power build, a gun build, a hybrid build, and a build for bossing. The skill power build, you'll want to use Cyclic Amplifier Trigger Module for the boost to both singular and dimension damage, and the Cryogenic Cluster Shot Transmod. The mods you'll want to use are Focus on Singular, Increased HP, Skill Insight, Skill Concentration, Focus on Chill, MP Collector, Strong Mentality, Multi-Talented, Nimble Fingers, and Frontlines. This build is great for general groups, 400% dungeons, and the Sigma sector. It is also the best build to use the Frostwatcher with. Here is the arcade tuning for this build, and I use the Chill Cohesion Mutant Cell. The gun build uses the full arcade jacket trigger module, which adds additional skill power to your firearm attacks. It does not use a transmod. The modules for this build are Multi-Talented, Focus on Chill, Skill Insight, Focus on Singular, Frontlines, Shot Focus, Nimble Fingers, Strong Mentality, MP Conversion, and Skill Concentration. This build is good for mobbing and even bossing the lower stuff, like when farming, but I would not recommend it for higher end Colossi. Here is the arcade tuning for this build, and it uses the Defense Neutralization Mutant Cell. Next up is the hybrid build. This is the one that I use most often. It is great for all mobbing content, but is especially effective in void erosion purges and in the Axion planes. For the trigger module, it uses Death by 1,000 Cuts, which triggers a meteor shower roughly every 6 uses of her first ability, so basically every 10 to 12 seconds. You also want to use the Cryogenic Cluster Shot transmod. For the modules, you'll want to use MP Collector, Focus on Chill, Focus on Singular, Emergency Measures, Skill Concentration, Multi-Talented, Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion, Spear and Shield, and Frontlines. This is by far her most powerful build in my opinion, and it absolutely shreds everything. Here is the arcade tuning for this build, and it uses dual mutant cells, both defense neutralization and frostbite vulnerability. Now, the bossing build gives you a few options. I use the trigger module Kuiper Hollow Points. This allows you to boost weak point damage by hitting non-weak point damage and getting what's called Forced Weaken. You can then expel those built-up Force Weaken stacks when you land an actual weak point shot, which then of course resets the stack. This does increase your recoil a bit, so be mindful of that. For the transmod, you have two options. You can use no transmod, which is what I recommend if you're farming or simply just want a quick kill, or you can use her other transmod, Super Cooled Kuiper Round. Super Cooled Kuiper Round lowers starting damage, but ramps up the damage significantly per weak point shot you land, resulting in more damage in the long run. Keep in mind though that it resets back to default if you miss a consecutive weak point shot. Here you can see the difference against Molten Fortress. Here's without Super Cooled Kuiper Round equipped.
Over limit free.
And here's with it equipped.
Ready.
It's very situational. Test it out and see what works best for you. I use it sometimes I don't. It just depends on what I'm doing. The mods for this build are Walk a Tightrope, Increased HP, Strong Mentality, Insulated Conductor, HP Amplification, Shot Focus, Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion, Maximize Conservation, and Conditional Recharge. Now, for Isolated Conductor, this slot can be swapped out for any of the elemental resistance mods depending on which colossi you're fighting. Insulated Conductor is here because of Stormhanger, obviously, but you can also use Heat Release, Antifreeze Solution, or Perfect Antivenom. The best part is that all 4 of these are Almandine slots, so you can plug and play them without needing to do any extra cats. For the arcade tuning, you can really use whichever build you want, depending on if you want more skill power or more firearm damage. I personally prefer the hybrid setup when I run this build because of its versatility. Now let's talk about weapons. For Hailey, I mix and match depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I use the Peacemaker for easy weak point takedowns on Colossi, and sometimes I use the Frostwatcher for lower content farming or when I'm using the skill power build. However, primarily I use the Albion Cavalry Gun, the Kingsguard Lance, and the ATAMs. For those that don't know, the Kingsguard Lance is absolutely disgusting right now. It can place down 3 turrets that each attack multiple targets, while also inflicting frostbite, so it is absolutely phenomenal for chill characters. Its gunfire will also trigger Hailey's cryogenic cluster shot spread, so it is a really nice companion when doing mobbing in an area with a high number of clustered enemies, such as the Axion Plains. I use the Albion Cavalry Gun for the movement issues, as I explained earlier, and the ATAMs because Hailey is a badass sniper and she deserves a badass sniper rifle. Plain and simple. Also, make sure you switch to the ATAMs before you activate Hailey's 4th ability so you get the most shots and the most damage out of it each time. And here are the builds for those weapons. Let's move on to reactors. For Hailey, you'll want to use a frozen singularity reactor, preferably with skill crit damage, singular skill power boost, or chill skill power boost. External components, you have 2 options. I use the Polar Knight set for the extra damage via frostbite effects, but you can also use the Slayer set if you prefer. Personally, I get far more damage output with Polar Knight, plus the extra skill cost with the Slayer set can be harder to manage on an already MP heavy build, but you do whatever works best for you. For inversion reinforcement, I use Focused Boost for the reduced skill cost, Chill Focus Rounds for the added chill damage, and Selective Neurostimulation for the MP regen. Make sure you also get this passive here, Quantum Domain, for the extra skill power and range. Hailey, to me, is in the top 5 Descendants, and I absolutely love playing her. She's insanely fun and as powerful as hell. She isn't for everyone, I get that. Some people don't like, her playstyle. That's fine. But if you're looking for a powerful Descendant that is really fun to play, especially one that has more of a gun type focus, I can't recommend her enough. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Later.